So the challenge isn't accessing information, it's transforming it into meaningful knowledge.
And you may have attempted with 2, with 1, with 3, and it sucked at the time and thought, nah, same thing. And again, it's as absurd as a toddler saying, I've fallen over 25 times, it's walking things in front, and then using their legs again. I don't say that. Toddlers don't.
The person who fails the most usually wins. If I fail more than you do, I'm going to win.
Now, it might sound like a lot to say, right, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to see, which trade seems like it's slowing down before it falls to the floor. But I have a hack for getting closer to this awareness, and that's what my program is about. Okay, it's interesting that pre-war judgment, once you learn this, it separates you from the race. It does. There's a line, and you're on that side, everyone else is on that side.
Thank you guys all for coming today. I'm going to be hosting this event with André today. He's going to be our co-host from our previous event, and he's going to be telling his story as well. So today is Mind in Motion, what we based our presentation. And I'm a creative director, photographer. I specify on visualizing and storytelling, mostly for brands, and also I'm specialized on portraiture. And I love doing long-term projects. I love riding motorcycles, hopefully shooting motorcycles very soon, and making long-term documentaries and stories as well. And I love gathering people together. So this is one of the things that I'm really fond of nowadays. So this event is the 4th one, and then hopefully we will continue doing the next ones as well. Our co-host André, he is launched a humanitarian project in Flowers and Wellness in 2018, has secured multiple rounds of government funding, positively impact health outcomes, and he is known of the Royal Greenwich community for treating individuals of profound holistic experience, which encompasses lifestyle, movement, and meditation. And then there will be a Q&A session in the end, and just prepare to move a little more, because we have some exercises that we're going to go together on mind and also on body and emotion as well. I'm dyslexic, so on my right hand side, I guess, it's Smart. He's a good photographer, friend of mine. He's a film and digital photographer. He's helping us covering some of the videos that we shoot for putting later on our YouTube channel. And Theodore is a cinematographer and camera operator. He's helping Cult from the very beginning. He's also one of the talents that we signed up in our website as well. So what we do on the second SAM, you can sign up with Cult and just send your portfolios. We share the portfolios. We don't represent you. We just wanted to connect you with other people. So this is all. And then we're open to all creative backgrounds. So also we're going to expand more things, hopefully. So, I'm going to talk about the mindset in the digital age briefly, and then we're going to have some exercises, some thinking exercises as well. So let me ask you something. How many tabs do you have open in your browser right now? How many unread articles are sitting in your read later folder, watch later folder? I mean, briefly. So everybody has these tabs, like we have 1,000 tabs, we pin the tabs, and then our videos in our watch data list in our YouTube is just growing. We're droning all that information, yet somehow we often feel less knowledgeable than ever. So this is one of the outcomes of information versus knowledge dilemma nowadays. In our hyper-connected world, we face a paradox. Information is infinite, but the attention is finite. So the challenge isn't accessing information, it's transforming it into meaningful knowledge, and eventually wisdom. So Einstein said, information is not knowledge, the only source of knowledge is experience. This distinction is crucial for modern creatives. While AI can process information faster than any human, it can't replace the depth of human experience and understanding. So think of information as individual pieces of a puzzle scattered across a table. Okay? So knowledge is understanding how these pieces fit together. Wisdom is knowing which puzzle is worth solving in the first place. So as creatives, we need 3 core skills. First, pattern recognition, which is seeing connections where others see chaos. These are very, very, very mild skills that we do. So the second one is synthesis, which is combining different ideas into something new, which is almost all advertising photography based on synthesis. If you think about this, discernment, knowing what to ignore. This is one of the things, because we are living on the age of distraction nowadays. So ignoring something can save you a lot of time focusing on something else. So this could be one of our 3 core skills for me. So this brings us to a crucial question. In this complex landscape, should we be like a Swiss Army knife or a katana? So, should we spread ourselves wide or go deep? Should we be specialist or a generalist? So, which one is better, doing one thing 10,000 times at once or practicing one skill 10,000 times? The person who fails the most usually wins. If I fail more than you do, I'm going to win. Because to keep failing, you've got to be trying, you've got to be moving forward. The future belongs to neither pure specialist nor pure generalist. It belongs to what I call adaptive experts. So people who combine the deep expertise in one area with ability to learn and adapt across many. Think of it like this. You need enough specialist knowledge to add unique value, but enough generalist skills to connect the dots and adapt to change. It's not about being a jack of all trades, but rather a master of one with fluency in many. So now, here is the most important part. Ideas are everywhere. They are free. We're not in the age of finding new ideas nowadays. They are abundant. What's rare is will and skill to turn them into reality. And this also brings the next thing, which is perseverance. This is very important. Edison famously said, the genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. But I would add a modern twist. Today's world is 1% inspiration, 49% perspiration, and 50% navigation, as we talked before. Finding your way through the maze of possibilities and distractions. The key is understanding that your unique values doesn't come from having unique ideas. It comes from unique combination of skills, experiences, and perspective in executing those ideas. So ideas are just starting point. You need a mixture of skill and perseverance. This is very important in very diverse aspects. Also, if you're starting to learn something new, also if you're starting a new company, or just trying to learn a new skill. Today's theme for me is perseverance. We have to wake up every day and learn and do and convince ourselves to do this again and again. So here's what I want you to take away from today. First, stop collecting information, start building knowledge through experience and reflection. Second, develop your T-shaped expertise. So go deep in your core domain while maintaining the breadth to adapt and connect. Finally, remember that ideas are just the beginning. Your unique value lies in your ability to turn those ideas into reality through your particular combination of skills and perspective.
And what I liked about these events was the intimacy. I've been to over 100 events last year alone, and that some of them can be quite chaotic, some of them can be quite superficial, whereas this one was an opportunity to have a really deep engagement and make meaningful connections. So when Ethan and myself were organising this event, we really wanted to make it as interactive as possible, hence the fireside chat, and as engaging as possible as well. So the purpose for me being here today is to share some insights, or share and exchange some insights and ideas for making significant creative leaps and health improvements through using flow arts. So flow arts is a new age term for movement-based disciplines. Movement-based disciplines can encompass many things. It can encompass yoga, dance. I'm a professional juggler, and that's my go-to as a flow art. So I don't particularly introduce myself as a flow artist, but I'm very comfortable with that title if I had to use it. Is anyone familiar with the scientific definition of flow?
Flow is like a different state of the mind where you, no matter what type of thing you're doing, all your attention is on that one thing. Nothing can distract you even when you're doing it. And it's like all your mind and focus is solely on that one thing. No matter what's going on around you, there's noise, there's chaos, you can't be distracted. You're just able to do it.
Yeah, that's a fair enough explanation.
Yeah.
At the end, I'll give some book recommendations, but one of the books that stand out on this subject is called Flow, and it's by a Hungarian scientist, I think he is. I won't try to pronounce his name because it's like 20 letters in his surname, but he has done more work on the subject of flow than any other human being on this planet. And the subheading for this book is I can't remember exactly, but it's a state of optimal experience, and it's almost like the science of happiness. And it's one of the most profound books I've ever read in my life. It shows us how we can take a very mundane skill, like sweeping the floor or cleaning the windows, or for me juggling, and put a system around it so that we can match the challenge with the skill level. So match our skill level with the task at hand and enter, as Theodore mentioned, this channel known as flow. So you're in the moment, you're not thinking about the bills, the past, what someone said to you, or whatever. You are in that moment. And the most profound thing about the flow state is that our thoughts are suspended in that moment. And that could be anything from nanoseconds to minutes at a time. In that suspended state, our consciousness goes somewhere else. And when we go back into our normal hamster wheel of a mind of churning out all these thoughts, there's almost like an upgrade, a cognitive upgrade after this flow phenomenon. So many great writers and creators actually use flow in a very strategic way to get into, to tap into some breakthroughs and leaps and insights. So, yeah, that's flow and flow arts. I mentioned that I'm a professional juggler. I say professional in the sense that I get paid for it, it's my work, but I'm not professional in the sense that I'm amazing at it. I'm proficient, and I'm competent enough to be able to teach people a system, but more importantly, a holistic system that you can use to get into this flow state and to make significant breakthroughs.
Learning one skill is okay, but like learning how to learn is more important. Then you can learn everything. So I mean, because I study journalism, I do all my life about like researching and reading something and learning some new skill. So this is really important because like if you focus on learning only one thing and one skill in your life, and then when you turn back, there is nothing else. You know, like then you have to learn how to learn. This is very important. We all come from different educational systems, but I think like the first education, it starts within you. So I think this is really important to go back to that stage that André mentioned, because like if we can close distractions and then leave them outside, maybe we can calm ourselves and learn how to learn again, so we can develop ourselves in a even different disciplines and perspectives that we never have been familiar before. So that's one of the things.
Absolutely. Before I ask this question, could you pull up the slide with my statement? Just to follow on from what you just said. So this is the statement that I've come up with. One of my greatest joys is to empower individuals with a proven holistic system to overcome perceived limitations, leading to richer and more integrated lifestyles. So why this means a lot to me, this statement, is because listening to the earlier conversation about unicycling and how challenging and how steep the learning curve is, just before you came, it's interesting to me that when we are approaching a challenging task, as adults, how we become so limited in our beliefs. And when we were babies learning to walk, how many times do you think on average we fell over trying to walk, pulling ourselves up on a sofa, taking the first few steps, falling down? Anyone, roughly how many times do you think we felt before we had a stable walking pattern?
I can't remember, but it must have been a lot.
I'm a father of 4, so
Say 50% of the time you're probably on the floor.
probably thousands, tens of thousands of falls before we were able to steadily walk. Now, when we approach a discipline like juggling or unicycling, I think it's tragic that an adult has a limited perception that says, oh, I've struggled, I've dropped the ball a few times, this isn't for me. It's as absurd as a baby falling over a few times and saying, this walking thing isn't for me. That's how absurd it is as an adult, and these are learned limitations. So my task is to break down, help people to overcome those perceived limitations, because those limitations are not a reflection of your actual abilities. They're just a perception. And many times they are false beliefs, things that we've assumed to be true. So that's why that statement has some value to what you just said. I say 90% of people that come to a workshop that I deliver will say, I have bad coordination or I'm not great at juggling. That's not something that I think I could do. And what I always say to people is, if you're not able to leave out a session with just a basic juggling capability, it's not a reflection of your ability, it's a reflection of mine as a competent coach. That's how much belief I have in my abilities in my craft as a coach. So I was doing speeds of in excess of 60 miles an hour on a 23-inch plastic skateboard. I've always had a need for speed, and I transferred that from driving onto the skateboard. But I also got on a skateboard because I understood that there were some intrinsic benefits to be gained from learning new skills, particularly ones that were very challenging and ones that were even life-threatening, that could just force you in that present moment. I may bounce around a bit, but I'll make it make sense. So going back to 2005, that was the beginning of my holistic journey, or what I would term my holistic health journey. It was really in response to a lot of friends and family going through some really horrendous mainly mental and emotional health challenges. Things ranging from anxiety to more severe challenges like suicidal tendencies. So that was the spark of an inquiry into, I wonder if there are better ways to address some of these challenges that do not involve medication. The individuals that I saw and supported going through these challenges, the ones that were using medication, I noticed that the medication had a place for very acute conditions. So it was able to stabilize very acute conditions, but it in no way, shape or form healed or cured anything. And often was the case was that it created side effects that were worse than the actual condition they were being treated for. And then it just created this cascade, vicious cycle of needing more medication to chase the side effects, to chase the new side effects. So I wouldn't say it was a light bulb moment, but it was definitely around that time I started to get very intentional about, I wonder if there are better ways to address these serious health challenges. An experience that I went through a year later, 2006, I was going through some serious stressful, I had about a few weeks where it was very, very stressful. And shortly after this intense stress period, I developed swollen glands. And when I went to the GP, I was then told that I had glandular fever. And I don't know if anybody knows, but that's supposed to be like a kissing disease. That's what they say. And I knew that I hadn't kissed anyone in that period of time leading up to it, because I was going through a separation. I was also a new father at the time. So I had a lot of emotional unrest and upheaval. But when I had the diagnosis of glandular fever, something just didn't sit right with me, because all I was told was take this medication. That was on the basis of a 5-minute consultation. There was no questions about my lifestyle, about anything leading up to it. It was just an examination. You've got this condition, take this medication. So I wasn't okay with that. Something sparked inside and said, meditate on this. And in that period, I really got to what I would term the root, which was understanding that there was a lot of stress leading up to that physical manifestation of swollen glands. And then it was like a penny drop moment. And then I realized that I've created this, I've manifested this adverse condition. And then the logic followed, if I've created this, maybe that I can resolve it the same way I created it. So it wasn't overnight, but it was then, at that point, a healthy obsession with reading began. Prior to that, I'd never really read a book more than a few pages. But after that moment, I started eating books, literally just for fun, just consuming books from personal development, neuroscience, things that could address my own pain points, but also things that could help people around me. And the more I read personal development, neuroscience, the more I learned that we do actually need to feel the natural rhythm of our body in most cases when we talk about serious health challenges. And in the same way we create them, we can also prevent and resolve and address these issues. So before becoming a wellness practitioner, I was acutely aware that I had to fix myself first. I had to work on myself before I could share anything with anybody else. So from the ages of 26 to 30, I've had a healthy obsession, as I said. I was reading sometimes 2 books a month, very thick books, neuroscience, personal development. And then when I reached 30, it was at a point where I felt, actually, I need to turn this theory into practical. I need to put this into practice. And that's when I did the unthinkable. And at the age of 30, decided to get on a skateboard. And it was just at that time to say, right, how can I turn my insights in neuroplasticity, which is the understanding about how we can rewire our brain, and leverage on these insights. So I got on the skateboard. It was a profound experience. It was a creative outlet. I've never felt as good as I felt until that moment in my life. And then the mishap happened 4 years later. On reflection, I would say it was a blessing in disguise, because the reason why I asked you all about your interests and hobbies is because I approached that hobby in my infinite wisdom, thinking that yes, it's healthy, I'm getting all these health benefits, but I approached it in a very lopsided way. I was only using my dominant foot to push, and I was staying in one stance, which was basically building muscle on one side of the body. I was using one side of my brain disproportionately to the other. And I didn't notice it until I was recovering in bed from a fracture or a break in my ankle. And again, another penny drop moment was that I realized that if I hadn't had this accident, I may have done some real serious damage to my spine and to my physiology, because it was like going to the gym and just working out on one side of the body. And So I had a lot of discomfort before the accident, and the awareness came to me while I was recovering that actually, if I get back on this, I need to do it in a more balanced way. It just so happens that I was a father of 3 while at the time that I was recovering, and I realized that I'm not in a position to be in bed for 3 months anytime soon. So then I started to look for a safer alternative to skateboarding, and juggling seemed to be the logical alternative. When I picked up 3 tangerines from the fruit bowl back in 2017, I was blown away at what I felt going on inside of me. The analogy that I usually share with people, it felt like a pint of dopamine had been released in my brain. Dopamine is a reward chemical, is what it's known as. When we do something that's rewarding, we get a release, a natural release of chemical that makes us feel amazing. And most people go to drugs, alcohol, all these vices to get what they can get quite naturally. And that's what I was experiencing. I was experiencing that phenomenon very organically. And I couldn't explain it. I didn't understand the science. I'm not a scientist. I'm not even a neuroscientist. I'm just someone who's immersed himself in this discipline to the point where I understand it probably as well as an MD, and I understand the themes. So when I decided, right, there's something here, I'm like a terrier, one of those small dogs that once their teeth is sunk into something, I'm not letting go. And that's how I am with everything. So that's a gift and a curse. But on the upside, I kept practicing, did not stop. And 3 months into my daily practice, something profound happened. I used to smoke marijuana, cannabis for 22 years leading up to my juggling journey. 3 months in, a switch had flipped. Literally, it was almost like an overnight phenomenon. I didn't use any willpower to stop. For the first time in all those years, I could see the stupidity in my own self-sabotaging behavior, unlike any time before. I understood on an intellectual level that this is not good for my lungs, this is affecting my mood, my bank balance, all these things, but didn't have any real desire to want to stop. But there was something about a transformation that happened. It took me 3 months. I've worked with some people who have gone through that transformation after 1 session. So it's impossible to say how long it can take for anyone to use this as a tool for addictions, because the brain is so unique and it's so complex. But like I said, I've observed it in someone else in 1 session, and for me it took 3 months. Going through those personal experiences gave me validation and the integrity to be able to share this with people authentically and also create a system. So now my purpose on this planet is to teach people a holistic system to learn the skill of juggling, and it's leveraging all of the experience that I've just shared with you in a very condensed way. So if this was a circus skills workshop, the aim of a juggling workshop in a circus skills setting is how quick can we get these balls in the air? And oftentimes you're using your dominant side more. And my concern with that approach is that when you use your left hand, your right hemisphere of your brain is controlling that action, and vice versa. So my journey and my task is to encourage people to get an equal workout on both sides of the brain. And we're talking about, back to the theme of this meetup today, it's about tapping in to some of the creative breakthrough implications that come through this process. When I said I was going to commit to sharing juggling with people, I had a very well-paying job at the time, and I did the unthinkable. I left because it was joyful, it was fulfilling on one level, but I knew there was something more. But I didn't have a map, a roadmap, or a precedent before me as someone that did what I'm doing. So it was a massive gamble to say, I'm going to make money from this and I'm not going in the circus. That's one thing I knew for certain. I'm not an entertainer. There's more to this than clownship. It has to be meaningful and impactful. The more I developed my skill and did the research, the more profound it became apparent that not only can I make an impact, but I can make a shitload of money from it in the process as well. But that wasn't my mission. I learned that I can make more money in corporate settings where they pay very generously for well-being initiatives. But from the very beginning, when you opened up, this was all about humanitarian. That was my purpose. From everything that I'd experienced leading up to that point, I wanted to make this accessible to as many people that were open and receptive to it. So just to answer your question, money was definitely not a driving force in this whole thing. It is today because I know that the more money that I have, the more I can impact other people's lives, but it's not at the cost of the impact. I'm working on getting that seesaw nice and evenly balanced, income impact. So that's my personal journey. I went on for a bit longer than I expected, but it sounded great on the surface of my journey, but there's a lot of adversity which I don't think is appropriate to get into now. But there was a hell of a lot of challenges to overcome that led to this breakthrough. What's on the screen now is a wellness wheel. And before presenting this, I'd love to just hear from everyone present, what does wellness mean to you? If we look at each of those portions of a pillar, I use the analogy of plate spinning in a circus. Has everybody seen spinning plates, when people spin plates on a stick in a circus? Everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, so the analogy that I use is that we're all waking up every single day with spinning plates. And these are 8 pillars. They could be more for some, probably not less, especially in a developed world. But wellness is the ability to, no one as human being is going to be 10 out of 10 in each of those domains. But I think our task is to get as close to 8. If we can stretch it above that grade, like 8 out of 10 in terms of optimal, being optimal. So for example, emotional, we can measure that by the way that we react or respond to challenging situations. Do we respond or do we react? There's many ways to approach how to improve your emotional. For EQ, occupational, is your work rewarding, fulfilling, job satisfaction? And it's about, as I said, just getting these close, having awareness of getting these as close as you can to not perfection, but an improved version. Intellectual, you can get that from reading, from having stimulating conversations like we're having now. Environmental, time and nature, very important. All of them are very important, but this one, especially in the city, we're very depleted from nature. Financial, extremely important. To meditate, you've got to have food in your stomach. It's very difficult to meditate on an empty stomach. So I'm not for the view of the Eastern philosophy, which is you can be poor and happy and sustainable. I think you have to have money as well as be a good person. Social, good social connections and interactions have been known since the ancient Greeks, the Stoics, as very health-giving. Physical, that goes without saying, mind-body balance. And spiritual, again, whatever your faith system is, I think it's important to be able to wake up on any given day and to just be able to assess where we are in these areas and to be able to prioritize accordingly. Now, it might sound like a lot to say, right, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to see, which plate seems like it's slowing down before it falls on the floor. But I have a hack for getting closer to this awareness, and that's what my program is about. So I've been funded by Public Health, which is basically Home Office money, to share these insights with the community. And I'm convinced more than I ever have been that self-awareness is the path to liberation. With an increased self-awareness, we don't have to make an effort each day and wake up, what do I need to spend more time in nature? Do I need to spend more time making money? We just know. We just are more in tune with our intuition. And there's many ways to increase self-awareness. The most ancient method is meditation. I'm a massive advocate for meditation. Everything I share with yourselves or anybody else are more gateways to meditation. And I've appropriated a term called dynamic meditation. It was a term that was coined in the 70s by a very controversial mystic, Osho, you're aware of, and he understood that when we engage in a very intense movement, and many times chaotic movement, and for him it was dancing, primal screams, and many other chaotic movements, and then immediately follow up with a passive meditative practice. What it does, it creates an equilibrium of rest and motion. So the techniques that are prescribed to us in modern day about meditation practices are ancient. They were created for a whole different mind and a whole different body. They didn't factor in technology, internet, the toxic landscape that we're in now. So this term I think is genius, and I didn't create it, I wish I did, but I've appropriated it because it is a lot more compatible with where we are today in the current toxic landscape that we live in.
As a side note, Osho doesn't have innovation without sleep.
Very controversial person. But okay, we can learn something from everyone, and I think it's good. I don't take anything else. So I've appropriated this dynamic meditation with my practice of juggling. And now I'm going to demonstrate in a very condensed way what my system looks like.
For example, do you check yourself with this wheel, align yourself with this wheel, like the end of the month, and sleep?
To me, it's a second nature now. So I'm acutely aware, as the minute my eyes open, what am I deficient in terms of this spectrum here? And as much as I'm a wellness coach, I'm human, so I have my off days. But if for example, my current daily, weekly schedule revolves around me being a parent, first and foremost. Those priorities come at the top, and then work is secondary, even though money is needed to sustain a family. That's just where I am today. I'm putting that above everything else. Now, there are times, especially in winter, where we haven't gone out much, and we haven't had much connection with nature. I'm just more acutely aware than I ever have been that, 2 days have passed, we need to get outside. We need to breathe some fresh air. We need to walk in the woods or in the park. If I've gone for a few days without reading, I'm aware, I need to read something, get that cerebral workout. So for me, it's more second nature, but I think to start with, it'll be like a muscle that you need to work on, and that would be quite intentional to start with.
Just because, to be honest, I started, and for me, it's bringing a lot of pressure, because I saw some the histogram. There's a lot of scopes that you can turn out from 1 to 10 that you can
Sure.
kind of paint it to see in which level you are, and it's it feels like you have to do it. It's all you get into the hamster life, trying another kind of hamster. To trying to take everything rather than relax and
But the thing is,
go with the flow.
I understand what you're saying, and again, I think if you're consciously approaching this from a state of low self-awareness, then it can seem like you said, like a hamster wheel going into something else. But the whole purpose of this is about longevity. It's about you being able to enrich other people's lives. If you're a parent, if you're a child to someone, it's about understanding that this matters. These dimensions matter. And if it feels like an effort, this is just one guide. But I'm sure that if you there's a simple saying: when you knock on the door, it will open. So if you really were committed to improving your well-being, you'd probably find something, if this is a bit too complex, something similar that can orient you, and get you to better health outcomes.
Yeah, and sometimes it's really tricky how to maintain this kind of self-awareness.
Sure.
And use different techniques,
Sure.
but not getting into another hamster.
So the reason why I asked you about all of your disciplines is because I don't expect anybody to walk away from here and start thinking, juggling sounds great, I'm going to learn this. But you can take your existing disciplines and just hopefully some of the insights that I've shared, approach it in a more holistic way. So I'm going to show you my system, or just a snippet of my system, and hopefully you can appropriate this if you go to the gym, if you do yoga, and do it in a more balanced, and a more integrated way. So you're not doing like what I was doing on a skateboard and just building one side of your body, one side of your brain. And one last thing I'll say, I've touched on creative breakthroughs. The health implications of learning any movement discipline in a very structured way are limitless. Limitless. The answer to your question about the effort required to remember everything, it becomes effortless. It becomes an effortless effort. Effort to engage in the task, but effortless to execute. Because self-awareness is not even something you can have a conversation about. It's like trying to describe what chicken tastes like if you've never had chicken before. It's a state of being that allows you to tap into something that you was otherwise closed off from and make more life-giving decisions. Say, right, I'm going to walk down that road and there's going to be something down there that's going to benefit me versus I'm going to walk down that road and get robbed or something bad happen. Intuition is like a GPS that I think is controversial, what I may be saying, but I think everybody has infinite intelligence within them. Call it intuition, some might call it God, some might call it the universe, but there are ways that we can use tools, disciplines to upgrade our intuitive capabilities. So,
Also, I'm not an expert, but I think like there is something. There's always, when you start to learn another skill or something new that you're not familiar with, there's a resistance. So first you have to deal with yourself about that resistance, that you're not gonna able to do it, or you're not gonna able to, learn that skill or something. For example, okay, so I'm gonna be doing bungee jumping next year this time. Okay, I'm afraid of heights, scared. So resistance starts like this. I decided today, tomorrow morning, I said, I can look for another tour. And it just it's very slowly like a snake. It just gets into your mind and finds a way to delay what you're going to do or what you're going to learn very slowly. And it just stops you. So for example, I'm going to learn some business skills this year. All New Year's resolutions are. I don't believe in that thing at all. It never works. It never will. It's just a dream. But if you want to decide to learn something, I think the first thing that for myself, I am trying to do to overcome that resistance. Because whenever you know that thing about the fishbowl and the glass in between. So they put a glass on the fishbowl. It separates. It's into two pieces. They put first one fish, and it just hits the wall, and it just starts swimming on that side of the wall. And then slowly they introduce another fish in there, and then they remove the glass, but all the fish still swimming on that side. So this is another also that there's a chimpanzee analogy of this as well. So the thing is we never know where this glass is. So this is, I think, the resistance that we create ourselves. So if we remove that first, then we can see other opportunities and then also other things to learn and see as well. For example, just taking one step changes everything in your life. Very easy. Go one event. I met maybe 4 of you in different events. You're here today. This is the thing that changes our mind, how we connect with each other. So I think this resistance part is what you were telling, how whenever you try to go to this wheel, I think you have to remove that thing first from your mind, and then it will come naturally. I think.
So what life affirming? If you said, for example, just lean on from you said, if you said, okay, this is important. Maybe it's challenging now, but maybe with practice it will become easier. Just a more empowering belief on how you view this subject can make a profound shift from the results that you get versus approaching it saying it's going to be an uphill struggle, if that makes any sense.
Okay, so how do you guys overcome your resistance then?
Perseverance.
Yeah, absolutely. Perseverance, yeah, because so what I'm going to demonstrate now, did you have a question?
No, I just want to add something to what Igit said, what I found for myself. And if I need to go back to the list with the questions that we discuss to each other, what I'm good in, I found out that for all these years I'm very good to self-sabotaging myself. The brain is miraculously good in self-sabotaging. I mean, literally, it's whatever is in your head.
There's no reason for it, isn't
Once you scroll there, it starts growing and you lost. So you need something to manage to recognize that this is only in your head.
Mhm.
And then beyond that, you don't know.
Yeah.
What you know is that this is a mental barrier which is entirely built by yourself. But that is, you need to reach a certain age to realize, like, oh fuck me, I
Could have done more.
I spent 10 years of my life self-sabotaging myself, and then no.
So is there anyone in the room, first of all, that can juggle? Apart from you guys, is there anybody that can juggle? Is there anybody that can juggle? No?
I
Okay.
can do it.
Okay. Okay, it's interesting that three-ball juggling, once you learn this discipline, it separates you from the human race. It does. There's a line, and you're on that side, everyone else is on that side. And what's also profound about it is that I'm not going to ask everyone individually from a time point of view, but I know the answer to the question: what stops people from, probably the reason why you have it is for two reasons mainly. Is that not really maybe understood some potential huge benefits that you can get from learning this, and also because it's not easy. And you may have attempted with two, with one, with three, and sucked at the time and thought, nah, this ain't for me. And again, it's as absurd as a toddler saying, I've fallen over 25 times, this walking thing isn't for me, and never using their legs again. Adults say that. Toddlers don't. So who's more enlightened? So yeah, I think the process of becoming an adult is really about unlearning rather than the acquisition of new things and new things. We do have so much things to tap into. So I've rambled enough. I'm going to demonstrate this very simple process that everybody that's here is welcome to come to a drop-in workshop. It's at Woolwich Central Library, South East London. You don't pay a penny. Whether I'm getting paid or whether I'm not getting paid, I'm still turning up. It's a humanitarian project. And it's about empowering people with these as tools that they can, whether they choose to continue it or not, appropriate it and use the principles in other areas of their life. With that hand, I'm a breathing pattern. I'll put you on the spot too, but as the brain is a biocomputer unlike any computing device in the solar system. It's tragic how much attention we give to these devices that are shiny and have all these circuitry, and we don't take the time each day to beautify the most profound computing device in our body. So every time we make a failure, the brain doesn't view it like that. The brain has a way of auto-correcting. So that throwing that ball slightly forward, you may not know on a conscious level, but your brain does. Right, next time I'm going to refine it a bit more, and a bit more, and a bit more. So with untold repetitions, you will get to a point of fluency and mastery. So again, I'm making it easy, but what you haven't seen is the 10,000 hours of failure. Most people are aware, with juggling three balls, there are over 100,000 variations, 100,000 tricks with three balls. Every single new variation is actually a new network in the brain. So the logic follows is that for you to perform a skill, there needs to be a corresponding network of activity in the brain. So if, like yourself, if you struggle with two, and then you try and then succeed, you've not just succeeded in a physical activity, you've actually upgraded your brain. So when we talk about creative breakthroughs, that's what I've experienced, and that's what I've been testing these theories for the last half a decade. And I've seen miracles in my own life and in a handful of other people. Not a lot, but in a handful of people, things that the unthinkable. So you've gone from a very high level of action, and then you're marrying that with rest or stillness. And what happens is the body goes into this state, they call it catharsis. So this is essentially a tool that can jolt you from being, in a state of chaos to complete tranquility. And that blissfulness that eludes most people when they try to sit down with all these ancient meditation techniques, it comes and finds you. You don't have to sit there like there's this blissful state that it just presents itself. Maybe for a second or two at a time, but that's all you need to get some profound benefits. And last section is some recommendations. These 5 books I've thought really deeply leading up to this event, what I could pay forward and give to others. And these are some of the most profound books that can just allow you to look at your own circumstances and get the most out of it. Flow is the book that I mentioned, Science of Happiness, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, very practical steps on how you can tap into more creative forces in your body, in your mind. Psycho-cybernetics, that's all about self-image. That's so profound, that book. Rest is, I love the subheading to that, why we get more done when we work less. In this age of, I call it hustle porn, where everybody's like, I'm so busy and I've got this project, but they're not making any money, or they're not making any progress in their health. It's like we've gone a bit back, we've devolved a bit as a human race. So this is a really profound body of work, rest, because it gives you very, very practical tools, and it shows you people like Winston Churchill, Mark Twain, all these people that made amazing contributions to humanity, and how they didn't really work. They did not work at all. They just was able to tap into reservoirs, and rest is certainly a strategic tool to do that. And then beginners, just like how majority haven't practiced juggling before, it just shows you some of the profound benefits that you can get from learning any new skill. So those are the 5, personally, my top 5 books in personal development.
This is, if you enjoy what we have today here, just follow us. Andre's LinkedIn and my LinkedIn is there. Also, Cult Studio account is there. You can scan it anytime. Please share your contact information with others. This is why we're here. And then let's continue this. So we're going to be doing this monthly events. Maybe next month. We always pick someone like André or other co-hosts that we had before, very interesting people to tell something new about creativity or our minds. I think it should always be, we should always be open to new conversations, because when I decided to do this meetup series, I realized all creative industries, we all hold it in ourselves, so we don't share. Since we share more, we learn more, and then we open up new doors for ourselves. So this is really important. If you think this is valuable, please follow us, join our wait list for the upcoming event, and come join us. Here we go.